So my buddy Angelo Fiouris covers the USFL. He is the host of the pregame postgame on Fox Sports New Jersey, on the radio as well in New Jersey. He's everywhere. He's in Canton for this game that's tomorrow night on NBC and Peacock from the Benson Stadium at the Hall of Fame right there. So it's not only cool, they're having some big event, like some bash tomorrow in the daytime, and there's concerts and fan fests and everything else. And then this game's at 8:00. Angelo and I used to do radio together in New York City. He's an awesome dude. We used to have a blast doing mornings. I don't remember much of it, Angelo. I think I was half gone when we did it most of the time, but it was early in the morning and we were up against Howard Stern, right?
Yeah, I think we were the only three listeners, you and me and our families. Going against Howard.
It was fun, though.
Doing sports. It was a blast, man. We had so much fun, and it's hard to imagine that was 20-something years ago already, Scott.
It's crazy. So that chick I was dating then, that blonde, I married her and had 2 kids with her, and I didn't want anything to do with that. You knew I didn't want to have a wife and kids. I was just trying to get involved a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, I'm having kids, and I've been with her ever since. It's awesome to see you. I'm glad you're on the show. Let's talk about the Maulers and the Stallions. All right, so fill me in. Birmingham's the best team in the league. They're the defending champs. They've won like 90% of their games in this league the last 2 years. They mean business. They're favored by 7. Pittsburgh lost to them by 4 in the regular season, but they went into it last week, the playoffs, 4-6. It's like embarrassing. And 3 of the wins came against the same team. And I'm like, how could they possibly be in the championship game? Explain it to me.
Well, the schedule just worked out for them that they were in the weaker of the 2 divisions. And much like in the XFL, where we saw 4-6 team make it to the final and win the championship game, it's a similar situation here. The Maulers actually have just recently gotten hot. They were 2-6 heading into the last 2 weeks of the year, needing to win their last 2 games just to make the playoffs. They did that. And then they won a playoff game last week against Michigan in Canton, Ohio, to clinch their spot in this playoff game. So, yeah, it's unlikely, Scott, but here they are now.
So who do they have on the Pittsburgh team that people should watch out for on Saturday night at NBC? And I have to tell you, what's weird about it is, like, when I was looking for this game and, the odds and looking for stories about the league in itself, I think it's clearly underserved. It was hard to find it on any major sites, anything else. I think that's bunk. These teams, it's hard. I think it's hard for people to grasp what's going on if it's not everywhere. You know what I mean? What's it been like covering the league in its infancy and growth spurts? And who does Pittsburgh have that anyone should keep an eye on tomorrow?
So I'll start with what's it been like to cover the league in its infancy. And it's been pretty interesting because the access is far beyond anything that you normally see when you're dealing with an NBA or an NFL or something like that. The coaches and the players are more accessible. We've got a lot more ability to get out on the field, find out what's going on, put our ear to the floor, so to speak, to the ground, and really get some insight to share with the people that are interested. Who's covering it? A lot of it is podcasters and internet types of reporters, Scott, that are covering this thing right now because, frankly, the mainstream media has, for the most part, ignored this thing.
So do you
as far as who does Pittsburgh have?
But do you think the XFL and the USFL are cool and badass? Like, a lot of people like it. How much have you liked it, covering it? Are you excited about what you're watching and covering? You think it's good?
I've actually enjoyed it very much, Scott. Most of the games are very close. Most of the games are entertaining. Is it NFL football? No, of course not. It's not the same level. But these are all players with some kind of professional experience. They've either played in Canada, they've been on practice squads, they've even been in the NFL for a cup of coffee. So they know the routine and they know the drill, and they do have professional experience. It's been a lot of fun. There's not a ton of fans in the seats as this thing begins to grow, but for sure, the quality is there, and I've enjoyed it. Now, I'll admit that the XFL I have not watched as much because my bandwidth doesn't allow me to go all in on two different spring leagues, but I know that they had enthusiastic fans. They had great crowds in the seats there as well in the XFL, and they had a very exciting championship game. So spring football definitely has legs these days. I mean, Scott, when did we ever have two spring leagues going at the same time in history? Never. And we've got one coming back for its third year, the USFL next year, and the XFL for its second year next year. So these are unprecedented spring football times.
So tell me about this Pittsburgh defense that has to take on this great quarterback. Mago, is it? Is that his name for Birmingham?
Yeah, Alex Magoo. He's the league MVP, and he wasn't even the starter in the opening night game against New Jersey. That was Jamar Smith, who was actually the backup last year and took over to lead them to the title. So Magoo came in the middle of the first game, and he's been on fire all season long. The guy's played lights out. He's been unstoppable. He makes things happen with his arm, with his legs at any given moment. And you can't coach stopping a guy like that. But Pittsburgh has the defense to do it, Scott. They're loaded with players. They've got two all-USFL defensive backs. They've got two of the best linebackers in the league. You might have heard of one of them. Reuben Foster was a number one draft choice by the 49ers a few years back. Yeah, and he's a team leader for them. Kayava Tazino is another linebacker who was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, just missed out, getting edged out by Frank Ginda of the Michigan Panthers. And then on the defensive line, they have a guy named Boogie Roberts, who is an all-USFL player from a year ago and their team leader. And they're excellent at stopping the run. They're excellent at getting to the quarterback, and they defend the pass better than anybody else in the league. As a matter of fact, in the first go-round against Birmingham, they had Magoo befuddled for a good portion of that game. He threw two early interceptions, and they only had 10 points after three quarters in that game, Scott.
The guy's only thrown 5 picks the whole year, and 2 of them against this defense. So I wonder if they're in his head a little bit. I know he's got Davion Davis and this big tight end Sternberger that's one of the top players in the league. So he's got weapons to throw to. Somehow Pittsburgh's been able to get in their way a little bit.
Yeah, they did a great job against them, Scott. Birmingham scored 24 points in that game, but 7 of them, or 6 of them anyway, came on a long kickoff return, which actually was the game-sealing point. So the defense did a great job, better than anybody else, in fact, this season, of keeping the Birmingham offense clamped down. They have excellent receivers, though. Like you said, Davion Davis is all USFL. They have Deion Kane out of Clemson, who doubles also as a speedy kick returner and is hard to stop. Their running game is very good. They have C.J. Marable. Magoo is excellent with his legs. He was the team's second leading rusher this year. They have players at every single position. Their coach is the coach of the year, Skip Holtz. There's no better coaching staff in the league right now than the Birmingham Stallions. Their punter and kicker were all USFL.
Who's the kid for Pittsburgh? Perry? Is he their quarterback?
The quarterback for Pittsburgh is Troy Williams, who played at Utah. Originally, it was James Morgan as the starter. You may remember him. He had a cup of coffee with the Jets a few years ago. Things weren't working out in those first 3 games of the season or so. Troy Williams started to take over. I think his first start was that Birmingham game. And it took him some time to get going, Scott, admittedly. The offense struggled in those first 5 games. But I'll give Pittsburgh a lot of credit. Their offense has gotten much better over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And they went from being a team that had to piece together their final score with a defensive touchdown and maybe a kick return and a bunch of field goals to last week. They scored 31 points in a playoff game and did not get a kick return touchdown or a defensive touchdown. So their offense has rounded into shape. They're not world beaters. Troy Williams isn't going to destroy you with his arm, but he does have the ability to connect with his receivers, and they've got some good chemistry going right now.
So who the hell is E.J. Perry then? Is that the guy that beat Michigan last week in overtime?
He was the Michigan quarterback, E.J. Perry. He was the guy they picked up in like week 8, and then he started in week 10 and the playoff game. E.J. Perry was the Michigan quarterback.
Okay, so is Pittsburgh's defense number 1 in the USFL? Is it the top-rated D?
Top-rated defense in the league. They only give up 17 points a game, Scott. They give up the least amount of yardage in a game, and they are tough. They are tough to penetrate, man. They really do a great job. They get after the quarterback. They shut down the run. They have in the last couple weeks, I will say in the last like 3 weeks or so, have shown a propensity to give up a big play here or there, which they didn't do that much of in the first half of the season. But they're still really, really hard nut to crack.
So the number is 7. And you said before you came on, you want Pittsburgh to be in this game, and you're kind of pulling for them. But your reality check is that Birmingham's the deal. Are you going to take the 7 with Pittsburgh in this title game tomorrow night in Canton, or are you going to lay it with the champs?
That's a tough one, but I think I'm going to take the points because I feel like this is going to be a field goal game late, Scott. I just don't see how the Stallions listen, they've been on a roll offensively. They scored 47 points last week against an excellent New Orleans defense, scoring on their first 7 possessions. So, but I have a hard time seeing them do that against this Pittsburgh defense. The Maulers had a 20-17 lead with about 7 minutes left in that game, and it was 12-10 after 3 quarters. So I'm gonna go with the template that we saw 8 weeks ago and go with the Maulers and over, believe it or not.
So I hope the fans dig it as much as what you're doing for them on the pregame, postgame, on the radio. I hope you're getting fans, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and I hope it lasts. And I hope tomorrow night's championship game is awesome in Canton, man.
It's going to be a great one, man. Thanks a lot for the words. And the league will be back next year for year 3, so that is encouraging for all of us that do cover the league.
Hey, it's great to see you, Angelo. Enjoy the title game again tomorrow night on NBC and Peacock at 8 Eastern at the Benson Field at the Hall of Fame in Canton. Good to see you, my friend. All the best. Happy 4th of Ferrall.
Thank you, Scotty.